Hi, and welcome again to another episode of Maintenance Matters. We are talking to Felicity An Guest, a financial abuse expert. Hi, Felicity. How are you today?
Hello, Eugene. I'm great, thank you. You're going to tell me you're great as always. So,
I'm great as always. You know me. You know me. We're still busy with the topic of financial abuse. And the next question would be, why is it important that we make people, the public at large, aware of financial abuse and that there is actually something like financial abuse? Why is that important?
well, I think it's important because it's been so normalized that, women just have made do with the high amount of women that are raising children without financial support, whether it's like getting extra employment or with help of their family, that it's kind of normalized in the maintenance courts as well, that there's no priority given or to shorten the amount of time that it takes to resolve whether it's first applications or arrears. And why it's important, because if somebody, for example, is paying their maintenance regularly, and this is how subtle it is, they're paying their maintenance regularly, but they're supposed to, according to the maintenance agreement, they're supposed to pay by the 31st of the month, and they don't. So one month they might pay on the 5th, the next month they might pay on the 10th. So if the applicant, for example, has debit orders, in order to protect her credit worthiness or credit record, she will meet all her obligations for her of her income. And it could be that for periods of time they actually don't have money to buy food. So if the money came in on the 31st of the month, she would know that the debit orders can go off, or that she can pay her rent, etc., or the transport for kids to get to school for the month. Then it wouldn't, and there would be no impact, like negative impact on her credit worthiness, which has a long-term impact on her economic well-being. For example, if she were to apply for a
But
loan.
but then again, I mean, surely you're talking about a maintenance issue now, and that is for claiming maintenance where the father has a legal duty in terms of the common law to support his child. So that's on the one side, getting the maintenance. And on the other side, you have this financial abuse that is going on the other side. But these two, the maintenance and the domestic violence act, it works separately. So it's a different act. How do you combine these two? How would you see it being combined?
So just based on this specific example, for example, so we part of a big part of where the abuse comes in is where the person who's supposed to receive the maintenance then has to phone and go, you haven't paid the maintenance, I'm unable to buy food. Well, I'll pay it. When are you going to pay it? You'll get a notification, or you'll get it when I feel like paying it. And the Maintenance Act is accommodating up until about the 10th of the month. Thereafter, you can go and lodge an arrears claim. But if he pays it on the 15th, is he in contempt of court? Yes, he is, because he's supposed to comply by the 31st of the month. But you've got the money. But maybe they haven't eaten for that time period because she allocated all her financial resources. So these are the impacts. And we live with the impacts, but we don't explain like why it's important to hold that purchase. Yes, he's paying his maintenance, but what he's doing is every time I have to phone him, he verbally abuses me, he blocks
Mhm.
me, or he then pays a week much later, which has a direct impact on the children's well-being. I mean, the channel is the mother. So
Yes,
if we educate the applicant, then they can articulate that. But we're going to be, I can't feed them, and this is a maintenance issue because maybe if he's employed, then immediately institute a emolument order.
yeah. Well, you should always just remember that the domestic abuse of the financial abuse falls under the Domestic Violence Act. So that would be a complete separate application at court, which also is the normal magistrate court where you can do your application for a domestic violence interdict for financial abuse. But that is separate to the maintenance issue. The maintenance is still regarding the maintenance of the money that needs to be paid to in support of the child. So that's completely separate. So what a lot of people don't understand is that you could have two applications in court. You could have the maintenance application on the one side, and then you would have the domestic violence protection order on the other side. And those two can actually work hand in hand, especially now with the new amendments of the Domestic Violence Act.
So, in your experience, if once this is promulgated, so one of the reasons I got a protection order for economic abuse is because I realized that I was not resolving this quick enough in the maintenance court, and it had a direct impact on one of the most vulnerable of society. And that's why I actually, out of desperation, went and got a protection order for economic abuse. But the second time I tried to enforce it, they kept redirecting me to the maintenance court. So, these are my concerns. So I think out of desperation, because the maintenance courts are not operating optimally, that there's now another option, another avenue to try and get protection. But for me, it's a duplication of services, because we're going to have, and probably 70% of applicants probably qualify for some kind of protection under the Domestic Violence Act with the amendments. But I have a real fear and concern that these people are not, the people in the domestic violence courts are not going to be adequately trained, and rightfully so, they're going to question why is the maintenance function now being transferred to the domestic violence court, which is really the enforcement. But more than that, the Maintenance Act is financial support from both parents. It's a child's right, and that is essentially not for any gratification for the primary caregiver, but to meet the direct needs of the child to stay alive. That shelter, food, clothing, education, and healthcare. So if we just take it back and go, what is the purpose of the Maintenance Court, and what is the purpose of the Maintenance Act? It is to achieve all of that. And if it's working optimally, the by result would be less abuse towards the person trying to protect the child's rights or have their rights enforced. How do you, you've worked in the domestic violence courts. How do you think that they're going to respond to this?
Felicity, I did not hear your last question. Can you just repeat the question, please?
You disappeared.
I disappeared. Sorry. It happens. You know what? It happens usually on a Friday, but yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you just?
Are you gonna edit that?
Say again. Yes, I can.
You're gonna. Okay.
I will edit that.
So, you've been practicing law, and particularly like in the family court arena for many years. How, in your experience, how does economic abuse, where there is legal definition, how does that hold any substance in the domestic violence courts?
You see, what happens usually is when you apply to court for a maintenance order, you have to apply to court and you have to give reasons why there is a need for the children. So the maintenance is primarily there to safeguard the children and to force the father to fulfill his obligation, his common law duty of support. So if the mother is in a domestic abusive relationship, financially abusive relationship, then surely that needs to be brought to the court's attention. And the easiest way to do that would be to, when you file for your application for maintenance, the first time that you go to court to file for the maintenance, that you supply a supplementary affidavit. You go to the police station and you simply draft an affidavit explaining your current situation, what it is. And that would create a sufficient enough reason to prove that you are in a domestic relationship, and that like you mentioned, the purpose of the Maintenance Act. The purpose of the Maintenance Act is the protection of children, ultimately. So, and if you as a mother are in a financial abusive relationship, then that has a direct influence on the child. So it might be very wise to include a supplementary affidavit or an affidavit together with your application for maintenance in order to circumvent that, to explain to the court what is the reasons, why you are there, why you need maintenance, and what is the amounts of maintenance that you need.
Okay, just to clarify for the lay person, is an affidavit is really just a statement, right?
Yes, that's correct. It's basically just a statement explaining in your own words why you need maintenance. What is your current situation as present when you go to the maintenance court? What is your present situation look like? It's just a statement that you go to the police station, you write it down on a piece of paper, and they do it under oath, and that gets submitted together with your application form for maintenance.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think
Okay.
that gives a little bit more information to
Yes.
the ordinary person in the street to understand it and how to try and get some kind of protection from it. Thank
Fantastic,
you.
fantastic. So we're looking forward to speaking to you again on financial abuse matters. And yes, have a good evening further.
Thank you. And you too, Eugene.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.